Hello, readers. So you should have just finished up listening to Chapter 3, Number the Stars. This is the chapter that is called Mrs. Hirsch. I don't know. Hold on, let me look. Where is Mrs. Hirsch? This chapter is so good. So if you did not have a chance to listen to the read aloud, please pause your video, go listen to the read aloud, and then come back to me because I'm going to do a quick recap of what this chapter was about. So give you a second. Do you need to pause? Okay. Well, this chapter starts out telling us that the weather's starting to change, and Mom is now knitting gloves for the girls. They have no fuel to heat their home, and it's getting cold outside. The girls find out that the Hirsch family had vanished, and they find out because Mom had told Anne Marie to go to the store to get her button fixed, and the family is missing. They're not at their business, and all the girls see is this sign written in German and a symbol. That symbol that was left was the swastika, which certainly leads me to believe it's the Nazis have something to do with the family being gone. I'm noticing these changes happening. No food, businesses are closing, even the change of weather has me feeling a difference in this story. Oh my gosh, that's right. A new character joins too, Peter. He shares the news that the Germans are closing down shops owned by Jews. And Anne-Marie is super worried. But her mother comforts her again by telling her that her friends and family are going to take care of them. And this puts that connection back together for me that Mom knows the Danes or the Danish people are really coming together to take care of one another during this tough time. Readers, today in session 4, we're going to be analyzing characters' perspectives. Know that characters' perspectives are shaped by their roles. I want you to use your knowledge of historical setting, like what kind of place is this, and of the historical timeline to help you understand why characters act, think, feel, and make choices they do. The big thing you will understand in this lesson is when a character makes a choice or acts in ways that you may think are crazy, chances are good that the choice or the action makes sense in context. Readers who understand point of view are accustomed to thinking about how the historical context shapes the people living in it. Think about someone that you have gotten to know over time. Bit by bit, you got to know more layers. You first learn the outside of the person, and then you learn the inside. This is the same as learning about the character in your book. When you read historical fiction, it's important to remember that the times were different back then. The ways characters act and feel are shaped by the times. This is why in our last lesson, it was so important to do a historical timeline to understand what is going on with the characters in our books. Readers, today we will learn that a character's feelings and decisions are influenced by the character's world and his or her role in that world. When a character responds differently than you would, it helps to ask why and realize that the character's perspective is shaped by the times. Let's reread the scene from the first chapter of Number of the Stars to investigate this work. Remember when the German soldier orders, "Halt!" as Anne Marie and Ellen are running and laughing down the street? At first, we probably thought her being frightened by the word stop or halt was odd. And stop and ask, but why do we think that? When we think, I would never do that or feel that way, it helps to step outside of your own perspectives to imagine the perspectives of the characters. So try doing this on your own now. As I read another part, pay close attention to the different ways that each character responds to the retelling of the interaction with the soldiers. Notice especially how Kirsty and Mrs. Rosen respond. "I must go and speak to Ellen," Mrs. Rosen said, moving toward the door. "You girls walk a different way to school tomorrow. Promise me, Anne Marie, and Ellen will promise too." "We will, Mrs. Rosen. But what does it matter? There are German soldiers on every corner." They will remember your faces, Mrs. Rosen said, turning in the doorway to the hall. It is important to be one of the crowd always. Be one of many. Be sure that they never have reason to remember your face. She disappeared into the hall and closed the door behind her. He'll remember my face, Mama, Kirsty announced happily, because he said I'd look like his little girl. He said I was pretty. If he has such a pretty little girl, why doesn't he go back to her like a good father? Mrs. Johansson murmured, stroking Kirsty's cheek. Why doesn't he go back to his own country? What do you notice about Kirsty's response? How is it different than Mrs. Rosen's? Why is there a difference between them? In my opinion, Kirsty was kind of excited, like someone was paying attention to her. And on the other side, you have Mrs. Rosen, who's older, maybe a little more wise, and she seemed more concerned. I'm thinking the difference in their perspectives are probably by how old they are and the different experiences that they've had in life. When we read another chapter and number the stars, listen differently. Be alert for how the different characters have different relationships to and understanding of ongoing world events. Bring that same awareness when you read your book. Whenever you read books about people living in times or situations that are different from yours, it is important to consider what influences shaped their perspectives at that time, to ask, why would this character react this way? Remember that a character is shaped by his or her history. Usually when characters act differently in response to the same event, this reflects differences in factors like their age, their position, their understanding of the world, just like I noticed with Kirsty and Mrs. Rosen. Readers, today you're going to decide whether to read on or to reread, but either way, do some writing and thinking about your reading that shows your new goals of analyzing perspective. Today, readers, you will write an analyzing perspective jot in your virtual reading log. I will provide an example for you in your agenda, so be sure to click that so you know how it should be written. Happy reading!